You guys hear me, right?
Yep.
We can hear you.
Don't
Um,
call it a podcast. It's a highly uncalled for fake radio show that revolves around one community's obsession with the action star Charles Bronson. It's This Week in Charles Bronson, except no no. All right, let me start over. Don't call it a podcast. It's a highly uncalled for fake radio show that revolves around one community's obsession with the action star Charles Bronson. This Week in Charles Bronson. Accept no imitators. Hosted by the Hungarian hater, the E with the violent behavior, the gangster with flavor, me, Eric Todd. And with me, my coast, the shock and awe from Arkansas, first time Paul Bradley Crane. And with us, we have the guy who single handedly takes down AI with 70s and 80s information to rock the nation. You better Fanacek yourself before you Fanarek yourself. It's the host of the pop culture podcast, Fanacek, and the beast from the East, internet film critic and pop culture historian, Bobby the Brain Baum. As always, playing your favorite fake radio hits and taking your calls, Wolfman Danny Jack Getz. Tonight, it's August 8th, 1973, and Charles Bronson is a cop walking a thin line of old school police procedure and by the book while awakening to the realization of a changing society. That blue thin line, that blue line turns into a tightrope as arrests and murders of perceived small-time criminals start to unravel a 40-year mafia revenge plot. Conceived by an aging mafia boss and carried out by disenfranchised young men returning from Vietnam, Officer Lou Torrey has to beat the clock, figure out who the hell Wexton is to stop the massacre in The Stone Killer. All right. How's everybody doing tonight?
Glad to be here.
Vanacek?
I'm
Bobby?
excited. I'm doing
All
great.
right.
Thank you.
Bobby, are you here yet, Bobby Baum? If anybody sees it pop up that he's trying to get in, uh, he's saying he doesn't see anything in the email box. Let's get started. Let's start talking about August 8th, 1973, The Stone Killer, directed by Michael Winner, with Stuart Margolin, Norman Fell, John Renner, Ralph Waite, Paul Coslow, and Martin Balsam. Balsam. As it opens, we see trees panning into a city sieged with crime, a Michael Winner trope. You guys notice that in the Michael Winner films? He likes to pan in from the beautiful trees, leaves on the trees into the city.
Definitely. Death Wish 3. That's definitely when I think of Death Wish 3 and him coming into uh, New York on that bus. That's definitely one of his opening things there that I always thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I feel like Death Wish 1, it may not pan in from the trees, but it does starts off in a beautiful, like, what do you call it? Like they're on the beach and everything.
Yeah,
And
they're
then
on
we
vacation, right?
yeah, and then we get like that scene of the city where it's kind of beautiful with the street light, but and it's, I think it's like sunrise time or something, but you get that music, that ominous music, and you see kind of the beauty and ugliness of New York. Like you almost feel like New York is a threat to you, like that quick in the movie. If like, and I feel like that's a trope of his that he likes to do.
Mm, Definitely. He opens in Spanish Harlem, and from what I understand, back in 1973 when they were filming this movie, that was a pretty rough spot to be in New York. And so it's pretty interesting how he opens there and really opens with a really cool action sequence.
Well, from what I understand, there is a moon in Spanish Harlem. Is it moon or rose?
Vanacek, do you know on that one?
I
I'm not sure.
I can't
You're
weigh
not
in on
sure?
that. I don't know.
I told everybody that you had all the information, Fanacek, and now you don't.
You lied.
I hope Bobby Baum gets in here soon, the Beast from the East. So the movie starts. Now, I just want to say, like, this movie, they sold itself as your typical 70s cop film. But I think this was anything from your typical 70s cop film. But it did have a very 70s cop film and even 80s cop film type of trope with the cop showing up and something's going on. And he asks, there was another police officer was shot, and he asks where, and the guy says in the groin, and that's where we get the first great line from Officer Lutori, halfway between a pension and a wreath, and then they say something like, he says something about the kid's got a gun, or he's got something. He's got big something, and he says, and a small future. But my favorite trope is him when he goes in. The one guy goes, "Who told Tori to go in?" That always seems to happen in these films. Now, what we get though when he goes in there, it's a very short scene, and it's quick to the kill, and it's quick to set the tone of what the film is kind of about. You get him trying to talk the kid out of it, which I think sets the tone for what we're supposed to think of this character. That he's kind of, as I said in my intro, which I kind of read through really quick, he's kind of becoming aware to the change, societal changes, and that the people are kind of struggling. And he's trying. He doesn't want to shoot the kid. Of course, it's Charles Bronson, so we want to see the guy get shot, and we know the movie has to. We know it has to begin that way. But did anybody else find that like a little different than maybe a Dirty Harry or other 70s bad dirty cop films?
Well, yeah, I mean, he definitely, like you said, he was trying to talk the kid out of it. And also, even though he ends up ultimately shooting him, I think he's well within his rights, right? The kid took a shot at him and then pointed a gun directly at him on the fire escape. And I think they even mentioned that isn't he wanted for, isn't he suspected of already killing a cop or shooting a cop?
He
He
shot
shot a cop, yeah.
Yeah.
he shot a cop in the groin. I mean,
Mhm.
that's like you
Yeah.
talking about going low here. He shot him, not just shot him, he shot him in the groin.
Yeah, and in your
Yeah,
typical bad cop movies, like the cop is usually way out of line. I think Bronson, I think Lou Torrey was well within his rights to shoot this kid, by the way.
right. And I feel like I feel like when you go from there to him talking to his sister, the medical examiner, and he's Bronson there. He's Lou Torrey. He's kind of cold and callous about it, by saying the gun made him older and dangerous. But at the same time, he shows awareness of the struggles of the young people trying to make it, especially young minorities. He even mentions the white wall. It's very progressive for a 1973 film, I feel like. Do you
Yeah.
guys agree or not agree?
Well, you've got the situation, of course, when he goes into the building there, even before he gets to his sister, and after he shoots the guy, you hear a news report where they're saying, is there some way he could have brought him out other than a body bag? So it's this
Right,
whole
right.
idea of like, is there a way that this could have ended differently? And that's actually very current. That's a very current way of looking at the world, even though we're looking at a movie from 1973.
And then that's what I'm saying. Like I feel like it was a little bit ahead of its time. I mean, I was not alive yet, just to brag a little bit. Brad was an itty bitty baby. But
Basically, I was born a month after this movie came out.
yeah. Uh yeah, and I was born in 75, but I feel like they tried to market this as like a Dirty Harry type film. And the tagline was this cop plays dirty. And there were signs of that, yes, that he played dirty, but I wouldn't say I wouldn't say that his character wasn't uh fair. I feel
Well,
like
I
it was
think
one
at
of the
that time, if I may interject, guys,
Yes,
at that
there he is.
time,
Thank God. The beast from the
uh,
east is here.
okay, Bronson and Eastwood had more or less cornered the anti-hero market at the time. So the parallel to Dirty Harry, I seem to recall in a review written by Roger Ebert. I'm not sure if he was speaking in praise of comparison to Eastwood or just calling him a copycat. I mean, they both more or less came to stardom at around the same time, largely via foreign I mean the foreign market, but still I think that even though uh Bronson had a number of prominent studio offerings in the 70s, he was kind of still more or less regarded as a lower budget alternative to Eastwood, because Eastwood, I think, pretty much once he was established as a star, he pretty much for the so far the remainder of his career thus far, I don't know when that's going to end. He's largely had dealt with the studios.
Yeah, and I actually have Ebert's thing here, and I think he was giving it praise. He says it's a superior example of its type. Tough cop against the mob, and probably the best violent big city movie since Big Harry. If not, it's not much more, nor does it mean to be. It offers a stylish escapism at breakneck speed, and it gives us a chase and a gun battle that surpass themselves. I mean, I think
I
that's a
guess,
good. It's a good
but
write up with
but
a little bit of like passive, a little bit of passive aggressiveness in there. But I
I
think
guess
even
something that sort of annoys me, maybe I'm in a minority, is the cops wearing those. I forgot what you call the hats. I mean, I remember I call them pseudo fedoras. I know that what's his face that uh, I don't think Gene Hackman wore one in the French Connection, but I know that a few of his other fellow
he wore a
cops
pork
wore the
pie.
similar
He wore a
types.
pork pie.
Yeah, like the one Ralph Waite wears. I mean, that would seem to be more in a. I'd expect that to be more of a trope of a film in decades past.
I think that I was going to bring that up, Bobby. I'm glad you did because I think this movie was like a pseudo noir in a way, or a nod to noir cinema. I think like Lou Torrey was definitely meant to look like like a cop from the past, and I think he's representing old school police procedure, but at the same time, he's a
But I
little more
also think that that
aware.
line he makes, at least I think that it was made in this film. I guess because there are some films where I get the lines confused. That when he makes the remark about a kid getting a gun as easily as bubble gum, that seems I don't. I mean, that almost seems Dirty Harry-esque.
Is that in this film, Brad?
Yeah,
That
Yeah,
sounds
I
it
think it
familiar.
was.
is.
Yeah.
It
I mean,
is.
if
yeah.
I'm wrong,
After he
someone
turns his
please tell
badge
me
in,
I'm
he
wrong.
says that. Yeah.
That's right. When he's talking to, is that when he's talking to his superior, and he says
Yes.
they're not going to change the law. Kind of what you were saying, Eric, earlier. He's like, if you want them to not be able to get the guns, then change the laws. Well, they're
Which
not
is
going to do
also
that.
very
So
that's also very progressive. I remember
mhm,
hearing that.
Yep.
that's right.
I know when I first watched this movie again about 2 years ago, because everybody was raving about it, and I knew I had watched it as a kid. I have like either a learning disability or ADHD or something, and the movie made no sense to me. And I was like, this story is too convoluted.
It's
I
convoluted.
can't do it. But this time when I watched it, I'm more aware of my issues with learning and stuff. So and because of my job, because I do kind of somewhat like social work, and I have clients and families that I had to compartmentalize this movie. I had to watch it
Well,
like.
the narrative does seem a bit weighed down. It's not such a
Mhm.
straightforward one as Death Wish obviously is, and even to an extent, The Mechanic.
Well, I think nowadays this would have been like a 2.5, 3 hour long movie. I don't think people wanted to go to the theater and see movies that long, unless it was like The Godfather or something then. But if we get back to his sister, the medical examiner, there was another action movie trope there where she asked if he's going to see his daughter
Yeah.
when he went, because he was now going to leave New York to go to California because of all the pressure of the killing of the kid. And I
He doesn't even want her address. It's pretty
yeah.
messed up.
What do you guys think? I don't want to get too deep into that, but where do you think that action movie? And I notice we're on camera, but I just want to let you guys know we're just doing audio nowadays. But I like seeing everybody's beautiful face. Um, what do you think that comes from? The cop daughter's strained relationship. We had it in 10 to Midnight. I mean, he was still close to his daughter, but not really. Where do you
Hmm.
guys think that trope comes from? You think it's based on fact? I know cops traditionally have sometimes strained marriages and stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, even outside of the world of Bronson, you have the impression of there being a strained marriage, and I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the Ridley Scott directed Tom Berenger vehicle, Someone to Watch Over Me. But I guess I'm wondering if that's a trope because I mean, even though you have the impression there's something, I mean, that they have a good marriage going, I mean, the work does weigh heavily upon it. I guess because there's always the chance that family's going to come home with the news that. Dad is now a casualty. I mean, at least that's my take on it. I mean, it's not a usual have a good day at work, dear kind of gig.
Yeah, I get the feeling. I get the feeling that it kind of comes along with the line of, okay, Bronson's this cop. He faces these horrible situations day in and day out. It's kind of hard to have a normal relationship when you're dealing with that. And
Yeah.
I just think it's hard. I've got a daughter that I couldn't imagine not having a great relationship with. I'm an accountant. I deal with
Yeah.
numbers. I deal with things like that. And don't get me wrong, I can be stressed at times, but when I come home, I'm not dealing with horrific. I mean, imagine the things you see as a cop and how that affects there. One thing I did want to point out, I don't know if y'all know this or not. There actually was some scenes shot of Bronson with his daughter in that movie. I don't know if you know this or not. And Christina Rains was actually the person
Yeah,
who
she had
was,
like I think she was unbilled in the film, if I'm not mistaken. She was Ralph Waite's daughter, I believe.
and so there was actually nothing actually filmed there, but I just thought it was interesting that that kind of fell through, even though it was mentioned in the final product. So
There was scenes with the Lutori with his character of his daughter, or Charles Bronson with his actual daughter. What are you saying?
No, Lou
I'm
Torre.
sorry.
it would be
Sorry.
Tori. That's right.
When was that? I missed that.
Well,
No,
I've got the Twilight Time DVD, the Twilight Time Blu-ray, and if you've listened to Paul Talbot's commentary on that, that's where I was getting that information.
Oh, you mean there was scenes filmed that didn't make it to the
That didn't
movie?
make the final cut.
Oh, okay. See, that's why you got to watch Paul Talbot. You see,
Mhm.
I don't want the show to become the Paul Talbot show because then I got to owe
Right.
him money. I'm going to owe the man money,
Yeah.
but I do have to
Well, she
get
had a
this.
more prominent role in another Michael Winter film called The Sentinel.
That's right. That's right. That was the connection there with Christina when Michael Winter was cut here. Then she does the Sentinel. I don't know if any of y'all have seen that film, which it's an interesting
Yeah.
film. It's not a personal favorite, but it's still an interesting film.
It
It's
seemed
on
like
my
a
list.
wannabe
My long,
Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I hear. It's on my long list of films to see, and some of them have been
Creepy
on
as
the list
hell.
since we started this program. But it's on my long list of. And now his sister has one of the best lines in the movie, and I think it also sets a tone. There's a lot of tone-setting scenes in this, uh, when she says, "You remind me of home, the mill, the smelter, the mines, where everything wilted and died." And then you see Bronson's face, like that was like, I mean, like first of all, we know he grew up in mines and stuff like that. I don't know if that was a coincidence or if that was written for him. But when you seeing his face while she says that, like it kind of like really like it kind of describes Bronson's look. He looks like someone he looks like a human being where a lot of, and I hate to say this about the man because he's a hero, but where something inside him has wilted and died. What did people think of that line there?
Well, I mean, maybe it kind of sort of is kind of goes hand in hand with I'm not sure if Bronson was saying this about describing his own look or what other people had said of his look, but he once said that I think he said someone said that my face looks like a rock quarry that had been dynamited. I mean, so
Right, right.
on the exterior, he's a pretty hard guy, but I have no idea. I think it was written in mind, albeit a different film. If you recall, in The Great Escape, when he's digging the tunnel, he was used to cave-ins because I think that they wrote that line. I'm not sure if they wrote that line where it caves in because I guess that's an inevitability of the process because just to show that the operation wasn't flawless. But if you recall, when he's talking with, I think it's Willie about how he was unnerved by the whole experience and saying that ever since I was a boy, I've I've hated small places,
Mhm.
closets and caves and the like. And I think that Bronson, I'm not sure if he ad-libbed that, but whether he ad-libbed it or not, I mean, I think that was right on the button of his character and drawing from that old method acting exercise, which I think was one of the things he picked up. I'm presuming that a lot of actors at the time studied the method, and that was sort of essential to the method that employing life experiences in playing your part.
It was a little too on the nose to be coincidence. And during The Great Escape, he wasn't this huge star yet. but you read these contradicting interviews, even with him, where he says he doesn't care about acting, but he obviously did.
I
I
mean,
think it's
I think John, I think it was Sergio Leone who said that Bronson was the best actor he ever worked with.
yeah, that's amazing.
Well, I love that scene that with his sister because to me it leads to
I
right
didn't
when
even
you
know
were,
that was his sister. I mean, that
yeah.
maybe I didn't study Stone Killer very
Brad
well.
picked that up. I thought
Yeah.
it was an ex-wife, but it makes so much more sense that it was his sister. Why would his ex-wife remember where they grew up?
I just love that scene with his sister, and then because to me it leads to one of the best scenes in the entire movie is where it fades from Bronson's face, and we get that great music by Roy
Yep.
Budd.
Mm-hmm.
It just leads to an incredible sequence, credit sequence, and I just think that's one of the best scenes of the movie as we move out to Los Angeles. Um, Roy Budd at the time, was only a 26-year-old. He was kind of a child prodigy. I don't know if you know much about Roy Budd, but the guy who did the score here was 26 years old when he did that.
Oh wow!
And I just think it's an amazing introduction as Bronson moves out. We meet Les Daniels. We kind of meet the people out in Los Angeles. Fanacek, I don't know how you feel about that, but it's one of my favorite sequences in a Bronson film when they fade from him talking to his sister all the way to the point where he starts doing work out in Los Angeles.
Oh, absolutely. It's great music, great opening sequence. Also, it gets a lot of context out of the way too. Because we see, like you said, we see him arriving in LAX. Norman Feld meets him there. We see him showing up at the new station. So yeah, it gets a lot of storytelling done too.
That's right.
And you have two Walton alumni. You got Ralph Waite and you got John Ritter, who I don't know how many episodes he was in, but he was in at least one episode of the show.
Yeah, he was in several. Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to mention there, when you get to Los Angeles, one of the first things that happens is that you take this incredible credit sequence and it leads right up to his first involvement where they're getting that black drug dealer. Remember that sequence there where you get to the black drug dealer?
Drops the file on his desk, right?
That's right. They drop the file, and I thought about that sequence when we were. I don't know, Fanacek, if you remember back when we were doing the mechanic episode, we laughed about Corey and how he was this tough martial arts guy. But in actuality, he was kind of lumbering around.
Yeah, yeah.
In that first sequence when they get the big black drug dealer, if you remember, they're talking about how fast he is.
He's the slowest runner I've ever seen on film.
I don't know that I've ever seen.
Listen, Brad,
runner.
can you not call him? Can you not call him the big black drug dealer? Can you call him blue gummed? Have you ever heard that before? I've never heard that before.
Oh, jeez. And this is also another opportunity where we see that Lou Torrey is not a fan of racism. So it is
right.
progressive.
He's not a fan of it. He's progressive for 1973.
Yeah,
but he's not putting an end to it at the same time.
No, he's not an anti-racist.
That's right. That's right.
But
that's interesting the way because when I was a kid, when I was young, I always thought of the actor Ralph Waite as Papa Walton.
Same here. I was like, is that
he's
Papa
such
Walton?
a racist in this movie? I love that Tori's like every time Ralph Waite opens his mouth, Tori's ready to pounce.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, and you could die easy. That was another good line.
Bootlace Armitage.
Now, Armitage believes he has some info on this mysterious Wexon. I think he does. He tells that to Torrey, and that's when this kind of sets Wexton on Torrey's radar. And that's kind of like the mystery of the movie is who's Wexton, what's this birthday party, what's going on. Correct?
I think of Wexton. This is one of the things that when I think of the Stone Killer, one of the reasons why when I was younger, I didn't necessarily gravitate towards this movie as much as I love this idea of Bronson being this tough, Dirty Harry style cop. But the movie always kind of confused me. And it's because of this Wexton. The name Wexton so confusing.
Right.
Watching it now, I realize, okay, they send you down all these rabbit holes of Wexton. In
Hmm.
the past, it always confused me. I'm like, who is what's this woman out the ashram have to do anything?
Yeah.
What's this
Right.
black militant have to do with anything? Well, those were just, rabbit holes. That's all they were. I'm used to Bronson movie being point A to point B to point C. The movie, ends at some point. Here's one
Right.
of the early Bronson movies that didn't do that. And I have to admit,
Right.
watching the movie in preparation for this podcast, I actually appreciate it more because it was
Hmm.
outside the norm.
And that's what happened with me. Like I said, not to get too into um, my issues with attention and learning, but also you figure this movie came out in 73. Nobody had their phones there, and you weren't texting your friends during it. And when I sat there and compartmentalized it and just took each, like every 10 minutes and every different character and just paid attention, it's not as convoluted as I thought it was. It actually is almost a blueprint. Like you could, or maybe that's just the way my brain processes things. But I've come out on the other side of this, watching it this time, um, insisting that this is in my top 10, and this is one of the great films of the 70s for Bronson, for Winter, just all around. And you mentioned the music in the beginning. I didn't want to go past that without mentioning that. I wrote down on my other notes, I call it dirty jazz or filthy jazz. It has that, like, I love that 70s funk jazz. It sounds dirty. Like that was another tone setter right there when
He
that
also,
what was his
Roy Budd also wrote the score for the original Get Carter with Michael Caine, which kind of
mm,
has him in Bronson-esque territory, or maybe you could say it puts Bronson in Michael Caine territory.
right. Now, if I'm skipping anything, let me know. But I believe Bronson arrives in New York. He takes the cab ride, and this is one of my favorite lines in the movie. I used to say it when I was a kid, but I used to say it wrong. The cab driver said, "What do you want with the precinct?" And he says, "They give a good massage and a quick piece of ass." I always thought he said they give a good mess, like a mess hall, like food, and a quick piece of ass. But his dialect, his pronunciation of words is very sharp and very like I don't know. It almost seemed like he was like a little bit like going backwards in his speech and some of the things. You know what I mean? And Ashram. And anyway,
Well,
then he meet,
well, well,
then we
well,
meet
well,
Guido, but he called him Guido.
Yep,
well,
Guido.
well, well, at
I
one
caught
time,
that.
getting a meal was important to Bronson because, I mean, on a side note, I'm sure everyone here knows that when Bronson got drafted, he thought it was the opportunity of a lifetime because he got new clothes and and he was and he definitely had 3 meals a day, not having to fight with the siblings and family for a morsel.
I got to kill generals.
Yeah. Well,
What?
just to kind of go with your point there, Eric, Bronson had to do some training to with his own speech patterns in order to prepare himself to be an actor because growing up over in Pennsylvania in the coal mining towns and that type of thing, he had to go through some training to be able to and that's why part of what you see is massage. Or I mean, think of Death Wish 5. He talks about Freddie Flakes and his, most people would say dandruff. Bronson
Dandruff.
says dandruff. That
Right.
was part of his speech patterns that he had to go through in order to prepare himself to be, an actor and that type of thing. So
And and I
there's a
and I
lot of
know that
examples of that.
right. I know that, and I can think the point I was trying to make was I feel like some movies it's more noticeable than others, and I feel like it was very noticeable in this one.
I
And
agree.
also, before we really should get into the story and everything, but I gotta say, for a Michael Winner film, this is probably the most thoughtful film. Like this doesn't really the character of Lou Torre doesn't kind of fit that so Chato and Bishop of the Mechanic they kind of for me, I think they made the mold of the stoic, granite-faced Bronson of few words that we know of in America. The Stone Killer and even Paul Kersey at Death Wish aren't necessarily reflections of that. This is a more thoughtful character, although, yeah, you get that stone-faced Bronson, but it's more complex than that. He's more multifaceted, his character in this, and I think for me that was another reason why I couldn't get into it, because there were so many moving parts, and I'm used to Bronson, even if he does have a partner like Kathleen Wilhoit or Jan Gamboyd or Ed Lauder. I'm still used to him being kind of a lone wolf. Like there's a scene where he's in a car with other cops, and it threw my brain off. I'm like, he was like, what's he doing in that car with all those guys? Like, you know what I mean? But I know that's strange. I'm a weirdo. But he goes and he has beers with Guido, and that reminded me of a little bit of where he used to go, where he went for the beers and the sandwiches in St. Ives. And this is where we meet my absolute favorite character in the film, and that's JD. He's that little tiny drug dealer. And he is played by, who is JD played
Walter
by?
Burke.
Walter Burke. And I'm not a impersonator by any, but I've been trying for as long as we've been talking about doing this. Suburban swingers, God trippers. Oh, I got it written right here. Walter Burke, Oscar winner. Now he's not an Oscar winner, but he was in the Oscar winning All the King's Men. And it also
where he
says
played
here,
a bodyguard. He played a bodyguard, by the way.
now I have written down here that he was in a Three Stooges film too. Now I got to find that on my fancy computer here. And he was on the Munsters, which I can see, Lost in Space, and Stone Killer appears to be his last film, which
That's right. It's
is
his last
sad. But a lot of
film.
people make their last film with Bronson. You notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in
But
that
I
series.
loved him, and I don't want to jump ahead.
Go ahead, Eric.
Somebody froze or something. Who's talking?
I was just
somebody
saying
was talking. Who was talking?
he was in that series
Oh.
Empire with Bronson, but they didn't actually, Charles Bronson, the mid 60s, kind of was one of these series fixers where you'd bring him in. If your series wasn't doing so great, they'd bring Bronson in. Well, Burke was in that series Empire, but he was kind of before Bronson got there. So they both were in the series, but he did not coincide with Bronson.
Now, Fanacek, Brad's saying that Bronson was a series fixer. Would you call him a reverse Ted McGinley?
Yeah, I don't know. McGinley fixed shows. McGinley just would ride the crest.
That's why I said reverse.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's a great point. Yeah.
But anyway,
I'm not sure if the Love Boat had officially jumped the shark when they added Ted McGinley, but
yeah,
but of course,
that's right.
He
was on the Love Boat.
Destined to happen sooner or later.
Happy Days, Married with Children. So we finally meet the Mafia and Martin Balsam, and they're talking about Armitage and Lipper. Did I skip Lipper?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we skipped Lipper.
Because that's when we first meet John Ritter, and I
Well, I have that written down. Lipper meets Tripper. I figured Lipper. I have it written down later. I must have screwed up my notes. Lipper meets Tripper. I got to throw that.
And a pair of Three's Company alumni while we're at it.
Right. I think we're pretty much there right now, Eric. I think now's the perfect time to bring that up. So,
let's throw Lipper meets Tripper. Let's throw that to Fanacek, since he's the man who knows everything about 70s and 80s television and pop culture. Mostly 80s, but a little 70s.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about? I mean, obviously.
Just tell me what you thought about Lipper meets Tripper. What did you think about John Ritter in this? What did you Did you find it interesting that you
Yeah,
had
for
to?
sure. That's one of the things that, drew me to this. I love pop culture stuff. Love the fact that he and
Mhm.
Norman Fell were both in this movie. Now we just need a little Joyce DeWitt, maybe some
Right.
Suzanne Summers, and we got it. But this is actually, they'd worked together before. Ritter had only been acting on screen about 5 years since this movie came out, but his second screen credit was on an episode of Dan August, which was a
Mhm.
Norman Fell show with, I think, Burt Reynolds.
Right.
And he'd been just basically doing small roles in television at the time that he did Stone Killer. Of course, eventually lands Three's Company and the follow-up series. Three's a Crowd, I think it's called. But one thing I did jumped out at me about Ritter, he appeared in an episode of the Bob Crane show, and anything having to do with Bob Crane is always super interesting. But Ritter in this film, man, he doesn't get to shine much. He's just kind of an inept cop,
No.
Yeah.
But you
I
got
think he was
he's
also in
his
an episode of Starsky and Hutch, as was Suzanne Summers. I think she was in at least maybe even two episodes of Starsky and Hutch, but that's another thing entirely.
and it makes me wonder. I'm glad we're not on video anymore because Rob looks like he's talking in his sleep. But I'm just messing with you, Bob. Um,
Okay.
that made me think though maybe there's like a certain either casting agent that it like involved, or if it's just like LA at that time, these were these now Bob's really shaped to get himself together here. Um, or in LA at
Well, I
that
was
time,
lying down,
they
but
were just you're allowed to lie down. I was messing with
okay.
you,
Okay.
dude.
All right. Okay. Okay.
How you feeling? You look disheveled.
Yeah, I guess because I didn't realize until shortly before the show was going on today that I was because I didn't get anything last night and as far as a message, and so I was wondering if this was going to be something where I'd hear that the show was canceled again. But
It was in the group chat, and I also reached out to your agent, Robert. But anyway, um, yeah, like maybe in LA at the time, like I've heard these stories before, like at certain times there was like just like a handful of people that were just like getting grabbed for everything,
Yeah.
for little utility players almost, special teams,
He was booking a lot
usually
of work at the
sports.
time. Yeah, Ritter appeared in a lot of classic
Mhm.
TV shows. So,
And his
hmm.
father was
yeah,
Tex Ritter, so
correct.
who was an action star in his own right, a
I
Oh,
was
Western
yeah.
saying,
star.
do not forsake me, oh my darling, from a high noon.
Yeah, there you go. Now there's a good one. There's a good. See, that's why I like having Bobby on. He has got. That's why I like having Fanacek on too, and Brad. They got some deep insight with that
Well,
I do not have.
well, one of the things that I love about John Ritter, of course, being a 1973 person, Three's Company was just a huge part of my life,
Mhm.
with him and Norman Fell and then taking that further. So I've always loved John Ritter because of Three's Company. I always loved Norman Fell because of Three's Company. But one of the coolest things for me is I've sat at the table here in Benton, Arkansas. I live in Bryan, Arkansas, which is a sister city kind of a Benton, Arkansas. 5 minutes from my house, I can be at the table where Billy Bob Thornton and John Ritter sat together in the movie
Oh,
Argentine?
yeah.
Thematic. And
What
just stuff
movie?
like that. It's just,
No, it's a
I
Swing
TV
love
Lid.
series. It starred him
Yeah.
and Marky Post, and it was created by the Thomasons, Harry and Linda Bloodworth,
Mhm.
who created, well, I think she created Designing Women, and then later they did that Burt Reynolds Arkansas set series, Evening Shade.
Yes, yeah, that's
Now,
right.
speaking of that, John Ritter and Billy Bob Thornton. Um, I know it's kind of a tasteless film, but Bad Santa, I feel like that movie would have sucked if they didn't have John Ritter and Bernie Mac in it. I think those two make that movie. And I was watching Elf this year, and you know what? I was sitting there and I said to myself, you know who would have been a great elf in his prime?
Billy Bob
Would
Thornton.
No, John Ritter.
Okay.
Think about it. I can picture John Ritter playing that elf. John Ritter is a mensch and a really good guy from what everybody says. And I was in Hollywood once. I visited a friend of mine out there, and Hollywood High, which was exciting for me to see because of the really bad low budget TNA teen romp Hollywood, also called Hollywood High. On the side of the building, they had a big mural of John Ritter, and he was like putting the curtains aside like this and peeking out, like like
Uh-huh.
the stage curtains. And I thought that was really cool. Yeah, that's my thing on John Ritter.
Well, there you go.
Norman Fell, I like him as Mr. Roper, right? He was Roper.
Yeah,
It was
Mr.
Roper.
Yeah, Mr. Roper. He was
Fanacek,
great.
Fanacek, do you have anything more on Fell or John Ritter you want to share with us? Because I love both of them. I'm just curious. You always bring such cool stuff to the table in terms of TV and credits and that type of things. Do you think about them that you want to share with us?
I've had some touch points. I mean, Norman Fell had such a long career. I mean, he's been dead for a long time now, died in late 90s. But, he'd been working on screen for almost 20 years before this movie came out. Like a lot of these actors, he started in a lot of those various anthology shows, the Goodyear Playhouse, Philco, Television Playhouse, Alcoa Hour. So that's how a lot of these guys start out these anthology series, which a lot of those are filmed live, by the way. If you ever read like books about the history of TV, it's nuts. They were just live and you had to be off book on a lot of dialogue. His first screen role was 57 in The Violators, but leading up to 73 in The Stone Killer, bigger gigs included he was in Inherit the Wind. 1960 version. I remember I had to read that once in Saturday detention, by the way. I had to read the whole damn thing on a Saturday while I was in detention. But that had a killer cast. That's like Spencer Tracy, Gene Kelly, Dick York, Claude Akins. He was in Ocean's 11, the 1960 Ocean's 11 with the Rat Pack, did episodes of Perry Mason, The Untouchables. He'd been a series lead several times. I think it was starting in 1961 with 87th Precinct, which only lasted 30 episodes. Yeah, I mean, Mad World, The Killers with Lee Marvin and John Cassavetes, one of my favorites. The Fugitive, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Bewitched, I Spy, Mannix, The Graduate. He's in The Graduate,
Yeah. And
Bullet.
I talked about live television with author Stephen Peros, who wrote the book about H.M. Wynant. You got to believe. I don't know if you're familiar with the actor H.M. Wynant, but
I'm not.
he's still alive. You're familiar
Okay.
with him. Let me tell you this. Look him up. You're familiar with him. If you have a TV set between the beginning of television and now, you know who H.M. Wynant is, but you just don't know it. But I found that live television so fascinating, and I was hoping to find that Bronson had done some, but I think Bronson came into television just a little bit after
A
that.
little bit late, I think. Yeah.
But since we're
Um,
talking about television,
yes,
if you
sir.
were home that night, August 8th, 1973, which says Wednesday, were movies premiering on Wednesdays, or do I have the wrong opening date? Who cares? Dan August was on that night, Murder by Proxy.
There you go.
Cannon, remember Cannon? He was the
Oh
fat
yeah.
cop. The Sonny and Cher show with guest stars. Who was on this episode? Let me see. Mike Connors, Cannon, and Gene Stapleton were on this one.
Well, speaking of Mannix, right? Mike
But
Connors.
I would have, yeah, and I would have been, and I loved Mannix, the reruns. I'm not that old, but I liked the reruns when I was a kid. A Cold Night's Death, a TV movie. This is very interesting. A Cold Night's Death. It is where's it go? I wanted to read about this here. The Cold Night's Death. It is Robert Culp, Eli Wallach, and Michael C. Gwynn, two men isolated in a snowbound mountain laboratory to study the effects of altitude on monkeys,
Wow.
become the victims of a terrifying experiment.
It's funny. I almost brought up Eli Wallach earlier. Someone here said that,
Mhm.
Sergio Leone said that Charles Bronson was the best actor to work with. I would
Yeah,
argue that Eli Wallach was. I just love Eli Wallach in The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. I think it's such
yeah.
an amazing
Yeah,
performance,
I think
as
everybody
Tuco.
loves him. I've
Yeah.
never met anybody who
Now
doesn't love him.
this is a Bronson podcast. I do want to bring to the back to the Bronson was, from what I understand. Y'all tell me if I'm wrong here, but I understand that Bronson was actually considered for the role of Tuco. He could have had
Really?
that role if he'd wanted it. I'm not saying he would have been better than Eli Wallach, because Eli Wallach rules in that role.
Yeah.
Well, I don't
Bronson
Well,
know
was
what
I heard he
prompted
was.
Bronson to come along and into the Sergio Leone field because he was one of the first people offered a fistful of dollars, and he turned it down because he didn't want to be stuck in westerns. And James Coburn and I think a couple of the people from Big Valley turned it down, and it was actually Eastwood who said yes. He thought, "Hey, I can't turn down money and a trip to Europe."
Yeah,
you know,
I
you
heard Bronson, and I could be wrong, but I heard Bronson turned down Fistful of Dollars because he thought the script didn't make any
that's right.
sense. That's what,
That's what I
but
heard.
but before we move on from that, I just want to say that episode of Canon, Stuart McGolan was on that
Oh, well, there you go.
on that night. And
Margolin.
I'm telling you, every time we do one of these shows, when I look at what was on TV that night, a lot of times, almost every time, I'll find one of the actors in the movie we're talking about being on TV that night. Because I don't know what it is about that, but that's happened before on this program.
And
That's why
Norman
it's
Fell
such
actually
a
had a series premiere this same year in '73. I don't know if it was on, that same night, but he had a show. Shoot, Needles and Pins, I think.
oh yeah,
Yeah, lasted a handful
needles
of
and
episodes.
pins. Sonny and Cher sang that,
Hey, Fanacek,
and they were on that night.
you
Yeah.
mentioned Eli Wallach. And, yesterday was an interesting day. January the 3rd, I hate to date this, but I'll just go ahead and do it. January the 3rd was yesterday, and that was both Sergio Leone's birthday. It was also the director John Sturgis's birthday. And John Sturgis, directed a lot of great movies, but for Bronson, one of his best was The Magnificent Seven,
Yep.
another great Eli Wallach performance.
In kind of a similar role too,
Yeah.
playing a Mexican and yeah.
Incredible
Funny
performance. That's right.
Yeah.
Incredible performance. Underrated actor.
Needles and pins with Norman Fell lasted 2 months.
There you go.
From September 21st, 1973 to December 28th.
Then he hit gold with Three's Company and got the shaft in that deal.
Ooh, Bernie Coppell was on it. Come and knock on my door. That's my
Well, I recall seeing Bernie Coppell in a short-lived Robin Hood series called Once Upon a Time When Things Were Rotten.
Really?
Yeah,
So
it was created by Mel Brooks.
So Lipper gets blown away, right?
Yeah.
After Langley, who is our favorite, Paul Kosler, gives him a gun in the bathroom there. And shortly after, we have a fried egg scene, which we love on this show. We love our fried egg scenes. And then Bronson says a complete state of death, which was the name of the book. And that was when he was looking at Lipper's body, right? Where he was talking about Lipper.
He's looking at Lipper's body when he says, "What hit it?" Ralph Waite says, "What hit him?" Bronson says, "A complete state of death."
Yep. And now then there's a scene where Tori and the doctor discuss the creation of these angry young men from Vietnam. And we get the picture here that all these guys have Vietnam in common, pretty much. It's when it starts to unravel that these perceived small time crooks, like am I wrong in saying like Lipper, Jumper, Langley, they're all kind of petty small time crooks, but they're brought in to this bigger, this big plot from this mafia boss to
they're all kind of patsies in a way too.
They've got military backgrounds. They're in essence, they're what the title of the name is. Back in, you may eventually get to this, but back at in the original kind of blueprint for this, what's going to happen here, which is the killing of these mafia bosses, these stone killers were brought in. Okay, these stone killers at the time were non-Italians. They were coming in from outside. Well, now we're not dealing necessarily with non-Italians. We're dealing with ex-military people. That's who Langley, Lipper, these people are basically military folks that are they're outside of the mafia, so they're going to come in and commit this, these hits that are going to get, basically take revenge for something that happened 40 years earlier.
Now, can I share a bizarre? It's not bizarre. A theory I have on the name Stone Killer. I think it's a biblical name because he says we'd bring in these stone killers, Jew guns. And I think that's talking about biblical times. I think it's almost
talking about Meyer Lansky, and I think they're talking about. I don't think it was biblical.
No,
I think it was referring to murder. What is it? Murderers Inc. or
Murders Inc. And non-Italians. Non-Italians is what we're talking about.
Non-Italians, but he says Jew guns and stone killer. What did they do in the biblical times? They stoned people. David and Goliath. How does he get Goliath? David's Jew. The movie, not to jump to the end, but there's almost like a religious thing going on at the end.
All
I think I'm right. I'm not going to argue with you guys. It's my theory, and my theory's right.
It's your show, man.
I'm going to find it.
But he
It's
mentions
all right.
an old Jewish mobster, isn't he? Is it Lansky or someone else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about expressions, like, yes, stone killer means non-Italian killers, but where's the very, very origin of it? Like, somebody says to you, Brad, I want to light a fire under your ass. Yes, it means, get you motivated, get you moving. But it comes from way back in early England when they used to put kids inside chimneys to clean them, and poor kids. And the rich, when they weren't doing a good job, would light a fire so they would work faster.
That's
So
where
I'm
lighting
talking
a
about
fire under someone's what came from.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I think Stone Killer, and I don't think anybody listening to this cares, but I care. All
Well,
right.
I think the
All right.
truth of the matter is, if you really want to take what you're saying to some sort of extreme, Christians back in the day were outsiders. Okay, so we're stone killers are outsiders. That's real what they are. They're outsiders. People brought in from outside to commit. Back in the day, the Christians were the outsiders. Okay, so I guess I can see where you're going from that standpoint.
I don't know where I'm going.
I think we're all better
Anyway.
off for having heard this, though.
Yeah, aren't you? Are you glad you've heard that? Fanacek, is your life better today because you've heard this?
Hey, I love the story of the cleaning the chimneys. That was awesome.
Let me tell you, pieces of shit, something. This show, the whole point of it is for Charles Bronson to lead into so many more conversations, and I'm going to find out the truth. The stone killer. Why is it a stone? Why does he say Jew guns? David, Goliath. Charles Bronson, it's double meaning. To them, it means outside guns. To us, Charles Bronson is the David taking down this Goliath of the happy birthday 40th freaking Italian Vesper, goddamn whatever. Don't make me angry on my program, Fanacek. I'll come over there.
Speaking of don't make me angry, we moved to Jack Colvin as Jumper getting arrested.
Oh, I wanted to go to Jack Colvin.
Folks.
You tell me about Jack Colvin, because Fanacek, when I was a kid, I remember that guy on the Hulk.
Yeah, Mr. McGee.
Tell me more about him.
I don't even know much about the guy, honestly.
Okay.
I'd have to look him up. He jumped out at me right
He
away.
was a
I only know him
contract
as
player at
Mr.
Universal.
McGee.
He was on such shows as The $6 Million Man, The Bionic Woman, Quincy. I think he might have been on Switch, that short-lived series that starred Robert Wagner and Eddie Albert. And I seem to recall him being on a episode of the show The Rat Patrol from the 60s.
There you
He
go.
was on Switch. He was on Quincy. He was on Kojak, The $6 Million Man. He's been on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, one of my favorite shows. But can we talk about this most
with someone named Wilder and continue?
No. His most important work was the film Child's Play, which has a Charles Bronson link to it. J. Lee Thompson, after retiring from film, I guess he couldn't sit still. He worked as a grip or a good boy, night boy, boom operator, some kind of stupid thing on like Bride of Chucky or one of those. That's the
I remember hearing something like that.
Right, not long before he died. Yeah, I could look it up, but I'm not going to.
He'll always be Mr. McGee.
Well, I think at that time I learned, according to Pat Jankowitz, who's a friend of mine who's written for Starlog and Fangoria, that I think that when he got that role in Child's Play, his career was basically painting houses. I mean, I guess he was too stereotyped from the Incredible Hulk to have made an impression on anyone to put in anything of substance. He guessed in, I think, an episode of Give Me a Break, Murder, She Wrote, but by and large, I mean, the career he once enjoyed was kind of history. I mean, he did a lot of stage work with something called the Michael Chekhov Theater, but he wasn't one of these guys who was, I guess he made good money back in the day, but I guess when you get older, I'm not sure. I gather that, with all the accolades you achieve in theater, that doesn't necessarily mean anything when they're scouting for the pilot season.
Yeah. And Bronson beats Jumper to get some info out of him. So now we're getting like a more of a Dirty Harry type out of him there. And we get a little more of what we want and expect of
I love
Charles
how
Bronson.
Jumper steals cars with the biggest key ring I've ever seen. He got like 150 keys
Yes.
on that thing.
That's how it was done in 1973.
Yeah, that's one of those giveaways.
Was it
I
was it a bigger
understand.
key ring than the one that was used for the vehicle in Kill Bill?
When I was like 30, I was like I had a keychain with like 100 keys on it. And I was like, I got to get rid of some of these. And I was going through them and I found that the key to the movie theater I worked at when I was 17, I like still had it. I was like, I should just go in there and see what's going on.
I like the way whenever when Bronson's, you get to the point in the movie where Bronson's so frustrated. He's so frustrated with his captain and Byron Murrow, who's Byron Murrow is always obsessed. He's always thinking it's some black militant thing going on, and Bronson finally just has to walk out, and he goes. That's when he goes to interrogate Jack Colvin or Jumper, and
Mhm.
punches him in the face a couple of times. Does all that thing, but always thought it was interesting when after he punches him twice, he immediately calls in the guy that's apparently standing outside the room. Says, "Hey, do you see any marks on his face?"
Right, right. And don't forget Norman Fell. Jumper has blood on his face. It better heal. And was it before he beats Jumper or after that he kind of dismisses the black militant angle that a couple of the cops have? I mean, the one cop seems hell bent on on the one that the one that called Lipper blue gummed
Yeah.
so and so. Like
He's
he kind of
already
seems
dismissed it. He's already dismissed it
Yeah.
because his captain is obsessed with it being this black militant situation,
Mhm,
and Bronson
right.
doesn't believe that at all. So he's already dismissed that. He get now it. There's more with that later when they go arrest Fred Wexton, which is the black militant that has absolutely nothing
Mhm.
with going on with what's happening here. But Bronson's already dismissed that as part of what he thinks going on. So.
And before we get to the outcome of them and their black militant theory, there's a motel scene where we find out Langley's name, Al Lawson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we find the name Al Lawson. His
Right.
real name's Al Langley, I believe.
Right.
Yeah. And then that's also the scene where that old guy's there with the young girl. He's like, my
Yeah.
niece or something. Yeah, I like that. I say
Can we
old
can
guy. He's
we
probably
can we
like 3
sit
years
there?
older than I am right now.
Can we sit there for a minute before we move forward? A couple things I want to point out, and then y'all just a couple things there. Uh, the older man you're talking to is a guy named Robert M. Hart. And I don't know
Mhm.
how much y'all know about him, but he's been in a lot of movies. Been one of my favorite episodes of the Andy Griffith show called Man in a Hurry. He starred in that. But
He's
Recall he
definitely
was the judge
familiar.
on the episode of the Brady Bunch where Jackie Coogan was suing Mrs. Brady, claiming that she was the cause of a car accident, and he tried to gain favor with the court by wearing a neck brace, which Mr. Brady made short work of by throwing down a briefcase, causing him to turn his neck, proving his claim of a bad neck was nonsense. He was on an episode of Quincy where he was a former Nazi who had later kidnapped Danny's good friend. No, Quincy's good friend Danny as a hostage, so Quincy wouldn't back out of a deal to get some jewels. That he was smuggling from his, I guess some Jews must have paid him off via jewels to escape the Holocaust, who was later stopped by, of all people, Martine Beswick from Thunderball and From Russia with Love, and also The Happy Hooker Goes Hollywood, along with 1 Million Years BC. And he was also on an episode of, I think, Canon, where he plays some low level Mr. Big.
I think everybody was on Canon at one
yeah,
point.
Well, I did also wanted to point out on that scene. He talks about his niece in that scene.
Hmm.
The pretty blonde headed lady there, my niece. Well, that's actually Roberta Collins. I don't know if any of y'all saw that, but that's Roberta Collins, who was kind of a famous B movie actress. She had a part in Death Wish too, but if you go back and look at movies like The Big Dollhouse, Caged Heat,
Ooh,
Death Race
ooh,
2000.
Cage Heat.
Yeah, these were Roberta Collins. So Roberta does just kind of a little
Really?
walk-on type role there. She's a famous B movie actress, but that's who that is in that scene there at the hotel. I didn't know if y'all knew that or not, but
Man, you guys are going deep.
Fanacek, I listened to
Brad
every
goes real deep.
episode you do. You go deep, so I know you have to appreciate this.
I do. I love it.
Stop kissing ass.
Love
Oh man, look at
Fanacek,
that.
man. I listened
Roberta
to all of his
Collins.
episodes. I'm really
Ah,
into right now his
my
Hall of
name's
Fame.
Brad. I'm gonna kiss Fanacek's ass.
Have you not been
Oh,
listening to
yo,
his Hall of
she
Have you
was in
not been
schools.
listening to his Hall of Fame episodes? You need to
I
listen
listen
to
to
those. Yeah,
I listen to Fanacek weekly.
there you go.
Fanacek, I have said this a zillion times on our page and on YouTube that Fanacek is the greatest podcast out there.
No, but thank you guys.
She was in School Spirit. This is a great so
I gotta look her up.
my
You
one
want to
of
see
my
if she's a
other
Hall of Famer, Fanacek.
one of my other obsessions is 80s teenage TNA romps. And School Spirit is a guy, he's going to get condoms, gets hit by a car, and dies. And God or St. Peter or somebody gives him like 48 hours to go back to Earth as a ghost and try to get laid. And so, which is a beautiful storyline. And a very underrated 80s band called Gleaming Spires are in the movie and they sing a song called Here Comes Mr. Funhog. So I mean that's cinema at its best. So take that. Take that, Fanacek. You didn't know that.
She's got a pretty rich resume given her,
She was in the
style of film she
Sentinel as
stars in.
well.
Hard
Oh no,
Bodies
she
was a
was.
big
Oh
one
no,
when
she
I was a
wasn't.
kid. I
No,
mean,
she wasn't.
hard
Yes, Hard Bodies, yeah.
that was real
I
popular in the video
remember.
store.
Yeah.
But she did some good work. Saturday the 14th, me and my buddies, that was a big one for us because we love horror movies. And
Same here. And like people really shit on that nowadays, but I thought that was the funniest goddamn thing when I was a kid.
yeah, yeah.
Have you noticed that? Like I thought that was going to be like a cult classic, and people just shit on it.
Yeah, no, it didn't live well. She's in Three the Hard Way with Jim Brown, Fred
Oh,
Williamson.
that's one of my
Yeah,
favorite black exploitation
yeah,
action
for sure,
films.
man. Yeah.
Yeah. 1973, Iggy and his Stooges' Raw Power album came out. I mean, some people might say that was one of the first punk rock albums.
Sure.
So and I believe that this film is kind of like represents that beginning of punk era where like the the peace and love movement of the 60s was kind of like people were kind of realizing it was like a sham
Yeah,
and
BS.
you were getting songs like This Ain't the Summer of Love by Blue Oyster Cult and shit like that. So
But
all
we're
right.
about to get a little peace and love here in the movie because pretty soon he's going to end up at that ashram.
That's right. He's got to get there. So where are we at next? Here we got we got Martin Balsam talking about his 40-year resentment. He speaks of stone killers, Jew guns, he says Jew guns. That's where I got that idea. We find out, we find out it was called the Night of the Sicilian Vespers. And what I like there is I believe he starts making up words. He was the code, the badata barosta the cat. I'm like, what the
Capo.
frick? I'm like, is he making up words? What the hell is he doing?
Martin Balsam was for a couple years George Clooney's father-in-law because Clooney's first
Really?
wife was Talia
Talia
Balsam. Yeah, so
Balsam,
Martin Balsam had
who
was with
played Judd
Joyce Van
Hirsch's
Patten.
daughter on Taxi.
Yeah, she was in the pilot in Taxi, and but
You,
yeah, George Clooney's married to Talia Balsam for a couple years. They got divorced in '94, right when Clooney took off. So timing wasn't on Talia Balsam's side. She should have hung out a little longer.
I
But
saw
you
her
know
in
what?
I saw her in the play Jake's Women with Alan Alda starring in it.
Oh, nice.
I love Alan Alda. You know what? When he was making up those words, he was speaking balsamic.
Wah,
Oh
wah.
god, that's like
Let's
the
see.
vinaigrette.
Let's see
to me.
Fanacek come up with jokes. Actually, Fanacek does come up with some good jokes.
And honestly, I wasn't going to mention this, but because obviously it's not about Clooney, but when we mentioned the Sentinel earlier, Balsam's in that with
Mhm.
Jose Ferrer, and Jose
Everyone's in
Ferrer was
that.
Clooney's uncle.
And Jose
So,
Ferrer was in
yeah,
Evil That Men
Evil at
Do, right?
Midnight. Yeah, he's evil
Yeah.
at midnight.
yeah.
hmm
What about
Let's
that
just talk about
ashram?
Clooney.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
What
You want
about
to
that
get to the
ashram?
ashram?
Yeah, let's get to that.
Let's
Because
do it.
the ashram reminds me of like the party at Bronson's or at Jan Michaels Vincent's
Oh,
house.
the
You know,
mechanic.
in
Yes.
Canada.
hmm
Let's talk about
It's
that
it's
ashram.
a total Michael Winter trope. And remember when he calls to tell Norman Feller where he's going, he's like, "A what? An ashram." Like
Get your
he's showing.
vocabulary together, dude.
Well, not just that, but like for a cop in 1973 to know what an ashram was, like there was there's another like I didn't know what an ashram was till Joey Ramone said it in a song in like 2000. I was like, what the hell did I had to look it up. So he goes to the ashram, and that's where you get the great line. And it's a weird hippie party going on. It very much, and I wrote down another Michael Winter trope. So yes, very much like the mechanics party. And you get the chick who says, I never bought, you got a couple minutes. I never bought a cop before. Another
Do y'all know
place,
who that
another
actress is?
time, another cop.
Do y'all know who that actress is?
I do.
You told me, but go ahead and tell me again.
Well,
Because you told me off camera, and that was not interesting for anybody, or off fake
her
radio.
name is Kelly Miles.
hmm
So she's an actress named Kelly Miles, and to be honest with you, Kelly Miles doesn't have that big of a career, but her mother Vera Miles has an extremely big career, starring in movies like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance and Psycho.
Great movie.
And so it's just interesting that Kelly Miles has played that role when her mother is such a famous actress.
Now I wonder if she was making a go at acting, and this maybe just never took off for her. Maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of what it appears when you look at her list of credits.
Maybe he turns her down because that's his daughter. No, that's a stupid theory. But I like how he says another place, another time, another cop. Like I like that for this character. I like that for Bronson. I I we don't want to see Bronson hopping in bed with a young girl. You want to see James Bond do that, you know what I mean? But like I like that he's because I don't know if I could say no to that. You know what I mean? I would be an awful Lou Torre.
You know,
I would have
the,
bought weed off of JD.
the book that this is based on, Eric, actually
Uh-huh.
Lou Torre and the character from the ashram actually have a coupling after this.
Uh,
But
well, yeah, but I bet Bronson is one of the reasons.
Bronson had said earlier, he said Dirty Harry doesn't have to have a love interest.
Mhm.
Therefore, Lou Torre doesn't have to have a love interest. Ultimately,
And
that's kind of where that went.
I
and do
think
you
he
think
wanted the love
that's
interest. He just needed it to be played by Jill Ireland, and there was some
exactly?
contract issues.
Well, that's true. That's actually pretty well known. But I also wonder if that's why he was so appealing to young boys, at the time, because we didn't like, we may have been would notice girls at 12 or 13 or 14, whenever, but we weren't trying to watch that in movies. We weren't trying to watch romance movies, you know what I mean? And the fact that Bronson just kind of came in, took care of business and was done. Like, I think that's what was appealing of him to me. Like, you know what I mean? Wasn't too much I loved James Bond though when I was young, which
Yeah.
is but I remember my parents they would fast forward things I wasn't allowed to watch. And I remember For Your Eyes Only, she drops a towel at the end. And I don't even think you see anything. I think you just see a towel drop and they quick fast forward it.
I think you
And I
see
was
their
like,
feet.
yeah, you see like their feet. And I remember being like, come on.
Well, Eric,
Why is James Bond doing this?
who's one
What?
of our favorite actresses? Jan Gan Boyd with
Right.
Bronson and Assassination. Okay,
hmm
it's Jan Ganuary on our page right now.
Her
But
birthday is Tuesday.
I'm not gonna lie to you. So that comes out in '87. I'm 13 years old at that time. I it made me so uncomfortable that Bronson had a physical relationship with her in that movie. Because if you look at the
I
other
know.
movie, you know what I'm saying? You look at like
Hmm.
Murphy's Law and some of these other Death Wish 4 and all, it's like okay, that's kind of normal, but it made me so uncomfortable, that he was having that relationship. So I'm trying to remember back to those young years when I was young Bronson fan. I wasn't the least bit interested in him having. I wanted him to kill the bad
No,
guy.
no.
I could care less about him having a physical relationship with a woman.
Right, exactly. And it also made me a little uncomfortable because I didn't really care about their age difference, but he just didn't. It wasn't really. He just seemed. He was definitely more mature than her.
Mm.
And then he made that remark about his orgasm, and that was just to hear
Uh,
Charles
I,
Bronson say that.
when I was 13 years old, that terminal orgasm remark just went all
Hmm.
over me in all the wrong ways. It was just
Yeah,
the
it was
last
just
thing I
bizarre.
wanted to hear.
I still don't want to hear it, to be
I
honest with
still
you. It's
don't
a
want to
little
hear about
strange.
it. I
Yeah.
hate even saying it out loud. I want to apologize to everyone who listens to this. I even said that out loud.
So when Bronson returns to the police station, and stop me if I missed anything at the ashram. Um, there's chaos going on because they rounded up the black militants against his. Oh, I missed something at the ashram. Is woke. I love throwing that word around. It's a stupid word because it's more people are. He's more awakening to things. Nobody's totally awake, but as woke as his character is for 1973, he does describe what is it? Somebody as a spade, which I thought he was kind of low, but I think that's a that's this type of character.
Yeah.
That's this type of man. That's a cop. Like, there's you know nobody's perfect, and I think a good character like that is kind of a conflict, kind of a little bit of a conflicting character.
Oh
But
yeah. It was a movie made in 1973. You got to remember
mhm,
when it was made, the time
right.
frame as well.
But then he comes back and they rounded up the black militants and he calls the guy a cracker. He throws him against the wall. Why, cracker? Why? So he was all over the place with his racial
Bronson
things.
only hit Lou Torrey only cared about justice in this movie. And if
Hmm.
you were, I don't care what color you were, I don't care any of that stuff. I don't care if you were young, if you were breaking the law, Lou Torrey was there to kick your ass. But
Hmm.
other than that, he wasn't there to hurt you or think negatively of you or judge you or anything.
Well,
That's
he was
honestly the way
being
it should be.
he was being a yeah he was being a cop the way a cop should be.
That's right.
That reminds me, like last week I was driving and this guy broke down on the side of the road, and I stopped to help him push his car out of the road. And he was a Hispanic guy with tattoos on his neck and all this. And this cop pulled over, a young cop, and he jumped out and he helped me push this guy's car off the road. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people are quick to assume that a cop's going to run the guy's plates and turn him into ice and all that. And he just got out of the car and helped us push the car off the street like he would anybody else. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
That's right.
I wish I had a little violin music in the background. But anyway, so he goes to the record store to get a little bit of info on Langling. We find out he's a switch hitter, as the lady says.
And Bronson says the best of both worlds.
Yeah, right. He was kind of like, yeah, what was he thinking? No. And then we go to the jazz club and we have this great, amazing chase scene, right? I mean, one of the best chase scenes in 70s action. What do you got? What do you think, Brad? Do you think
That's a
it's one
good
of the
one.
best?
I think it's incredible. We've had a couple of gunshots, we've had a couple of people taken out, but if you think about it, we're almost an hour into this film when this sequence happens. So you've
Hmm.
had a lot of dialogue for Bronson,
Hmm.
especially. You've had a lot
Right.
of things happen. What 55 minutes into the Stone Killer, you actually have the first just straight on minutes long action sequence, which is this
Yeah.
y'all, it was such an embarrassment of riches in the 70s for car chases.
Yes.
Oh
Because this is
yeah,
incredible. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the various sequences you think of, but this is I've watched this multiple times in preparation for this episode, and this is an incredible sequence. It really is. I just curious to where
it
y'all think
is.
this lines up with some of the other greats in the 70s.
It's a
Well,
fun
I
one for
think
sure.
it's yeah. I think it's one of the best, and I think it's rivals like the French Connection. I think that was the point too. I think they were. I think this movie was meant to kind of like be like the Dirty Harry, French Connection type films. Um, I
I did
also
want
think it was a poignant or important scene too because we get what's that? Go ahead.
I was just going to point out one sequence
Somebody was talking.
of
Nobody?
of
Oh.
of the chase. There's a part. Do y'all remember the part where the car goes through the window and it says it's
Hmm.
like jumps through the and it says to me, I just found it funny. It says mechanic on duty.
Uh,
I just always wondered if that was
Oh,
supposed to be any sort of sequence towards, any sort of reference towards the mechanic, or if that was just completely an accident. I just thought it was funny. It went right through a window that said mechanic on duty.
oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I don't know if I noticed that. If I did, I forgot about it. But like, as cool as it was that it was cool as the chasing was and him killing him with the car was, you get a little more uh pun intended self-reflection from Lou Tori after the Christ Norman Fell's characters say people say you used the car on him, and then he's like looking in the mirror. Remember,
Yeah.
he's looking in the mirror,
Oh yeah.
and I believe he's thinking about that, and the mirror starts to crack. I think he's questioning himself there. Like, I mean, did I use a force that didn't need to be used at this time? Like, did I murder this kid? You know what I mean? I think we're supposed to get that. I don't know what you guys think of that.
yeah, and losing a key witness.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like man, if I toned it down, we could be questioning this guy right now.
His character changes a little bit right there when Norman Fell is questioning because Bronson kind of sits back, and he says, "Do you think that's possible? Do you think I would have done that?" And which was a little
Right.
different than what he had presented up to that point. It was just a little different. I believe that was.
Hmm.
I agree with you. There was a subtle difference in the way he answered Norman Fell's question there.
There was there was a character development here that we don't always see because when you're watching Charles Bronson, he doesn't emote a lot of emotion and stuff like that. But it began with the killing of that kid. He had to shoot the kid. The kid was aiming a gun towards him. You know what I mean? That he had to do it. But I think he started hit him questioning things started there. And I think that's why it offended him too that they drug in those black militants because not because he's so woke and so anti-racist, but because it was unnecessary. He didn't
Yes,
believe it was them and it was just unnecessary and ugly, you know.
that's right. That's right. It
But
created a problem.
but we get to like the most exciting thing for me in the movie is watching guys build an elevator. That's really what threw me off in this freaking. That's when every time I watch it, I'm like, why am I watching guys build an elevator in the desert?
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, what's interesting to me about that, so he kills Langley, and you're like, where the hell are we going from here? We got Langley's dead. We don't. What's funny is they then bring Lipper back. It- this is a
Yes.
good example of how these things that happen with investigations don't just happen overnight.
Right.
What happens there is after he's killed Langley, and you think, oh, now where do we go? Well, now finally the forensics come in on Lipper. And it's like, hey, we got
Hmm.
the sand in his shoes. And,
Yep.
and so it starts opening up some additional avenues to, okay, maybe this next step. And that's where we start finally finding out where what Wexton really is,
Hmm.
which is that ranch, which is that building,
Yeah.
that house,
Which is a
out in
cool
the
house.
desert. That's right.
Yeah. And they released Jumper with the purpose of following him there.
Yep.
That's right. And it's just a guess. Tori's like, okay, well, I don't really have any other plays here. Let's just let Jumper go and see. Let's just gamble that he's going to go somewhere that helps us, and that's what happens.
And we see an helicopter, and Norman Fell says, "There goes my pension."
Les, you've placed your bets. Worrying doesn't win horse races.
And then they get the gas station attendant that tells them about the mountains and the house up there.
Right.
That's when he gets in the helicopter, which is really cool. Like
What's
helicopters
funny-
are always cool.
What's funny there is Bronson pulls up to that little station. He's driving this Ford truck, the exact same model truck that Bronson's going to be in a year later in Mr. Majestic. Now, it's not pretty and yellow or whatever. It's kind of crappy looking, to be honest with you.
Right.
Exact same model that he would drive a year later in Mr. Majestic.
Well, I think the Ford company purposely was putting their trucks in those movies because there was that truck when I was a kid, I would talk to people about Bronson, kids that were big car people in my neighborhood area would talk about that truck in Mr. Majestic and how allegedly they only used one truck for that whole scene, which whether that was a rumor or if you know what I mean, whether that was like folklore for the Ford company or something.
Right.
But I mean, like you grew up in Arkansas, so I'm sure you
Oh,
had them Ford and
Ford
Chevy
pissing
people.
on Chevys and Chevys on Fords. And well, we mentioned the hotel scene earlier. When I'm gonna go back there just a sec because I thought about this when I was watching the movie, and it has related to this. Stuart Margolin's character drives up to that hotel, and he's in a yellow truck that looks just like Mr. Majestic truck. Now it's pretty and it's clean. Apparently, it's not the same model, but it looks just like the Mr. Majestic. So it has to be a couple years later or whatever. But the one that when they go out to the desert, right before Bronson gets on the helicopter, he's driving the exact model that he drove in Mr. Majestic. So
amazing. Freaking amazing. So what the hell happens here? Oh, I like when they raid the old Indian house. I like Norman Fell yelling, "You in the house!" I don't know why. I just think he sounds funny. He's just funny to me. Maybe it's because I know him as Mr. Roper. I don't know.
It's hard to see him as a cop. It really is.
Yeah, because he's just got that look on his face, that Roper look, that like he just I don't know.
You expect him to look at the camera and give that Roper look.
Yeah.
And then we find out about a New York City connection. And when we're back in New York City. We're back with Guido, but we get the return of JD.
Have you already left the sequence at Wexton?
Oh wait, what else happened? Oh yeah, there's a cool helicopters. Yeah, let's get back into the action.
Jumper rents that car and
Yes.
Yeah. They order him dead.
Let's not skip past the shootout at the house because
that's right.
I'm just going to tell you
about it. Yeah.
That's one of the I'm just going to say, in my opinion, it's one of the best action sequences in any Bronson film.
I almost thought that was going to be the end of the film. Like when you're watching it, because you're like, wow, this is freaking amazing. Yeah, though, definitely one of the best. I'm just excited to talk about JD again.
Fanacek, let me ask you this question. I know you've got this broad knowledge, and I know that I know you like Bronson, and I know that you appreciate Bronson, but when you watch that sequence at the house, is there anything that stands out to you in terms of the action, Bronson, anything that when you watch that sequence that meant something to you?
Honestly, if I recall, it reminds me a lot of am I getting my movies confused? It reminds me a lot of Mr. Majestic, actually. That shootout, because that's a cabin as well, isn't it? Kind of that rural vibe and a great shootout. And Bronson's shootouts always kind of seem very realistic. They weren't too fast paced. There was lots of single shots. Yeah, I mean, it was a great sequence. I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember recalling that it reminded me of the end of Mr. Majestic.
Well, one of the things that Bronson liked to do, Fanacek, is he liked to do action that he could do. He wanted to do like stunts that he could do. So there's a sequence in that movie where he's like sliding across the room. But my favorite sequence of the entire movie, which is 100% suggested by Bronson, there's a table about 3 or 4 feet off the ground. There's a guy in the next room, and when Bronson touches the door, the guy shoots the door. Bronson, from a flat-footed position, jumps on that table, just like jumps straight up on that table, so where he's higher than the guy thinks he is, kicks open the door and shoots him. 100% suggested by Bronson, but it's one of the coolest sequences of all Bronson action sequences, and it was 100% suggested by Bronson.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And that's just why I didn't want to leave that sequence too soon, because it's to me, it's a perfect example of the kind of action that Bronson was best at. It's nothing too outlandish.
He doesn't usually he usually doesn't like to
go ahead, Eric.
He's frozen.
Exert himself, which is kind of a funny thing to know about an action star. He doesn't. Who, me? Oh crap! Am I frozen?
We can hear you.
Shit. Oh, you can hear me.
You're good.
If I'm frozen, I'm frozen. This is audio only.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I heard you say I was frozen. So I went and I found that house is called the now I gotta find it. Why you guys laughing? Did I freeze again?
You're good.
So that's the Antelope Valley Indian Museum State Historic Park in Lancaster, California. Allegedly is where some of that was filmed.
Huh.
And that would be a cool place to go, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Antelope Valley Indian Museum. And they did call it the Old Indian House in the movie.
Yeah,
they did. They did say that.
But I like how him and Norman Felk could sit down and have a beer afterwards.
Yeah, I did too. That was. I'm not going to go to New York. You go if you need to, but I'm going to sit here and have this Miller Lite or whatever he has having, regardless.
I like that he's he mentions that he's 50. Like I'm 50. I'm like he says it like he's gonna die. Like he's like, I'm 50. My ankles hurt. My heart. I was like, dude, chill out, man. I'm 50 for God's sakes.
He was actually 49 when he filmed that sequence, and Bronson was 51. I don't know if y'all would think Bronson's older or Fales are old, but Bronson's actually a couple years older than Norman Fales. So.
I would think Bronson was younger if I didn't know better, but Bronson was almost always older than these older characters. Do you know what I mean? In his movies, he was almost always older because he was in his late 40s before and early 50s, really, when America started to notice him, really notice him. But it's just funny when people were 40 back then, like they looked 40 or 50. They just looked at, not that we don't look like we don't have gray hair and stuff, but like we're not like.
Well, I've been doing a lot of rewatching of All in the Family, and Carol O'Connor was 48 when that series premiered.
Right,
How am I older than Archie Bunker?
Is that about your age now? Fun to check.
I'm 49, so I'm actually older.
You were right in that ballpark.
Yeah, I knew you were. But by the things that you know and you're interested in, I do definitely that you were around my age, and we've discussed that before. Yeah. But like, I'm kind of hard to read because I'm 50, but like. I love I can hold my own. Like I get along real well with people that are like almost 70. Like last night I went to a 60th birthday party for a family member, and I'm talking to a 70-year-old guy about music and stuff because like a lot of like the hard rock I grew up with and that I love, and a lot of even the folk singer-songwriter stuff I like came out like the year I was born or in the late 60s. So and then I love like classic film and Laurel and Hardy. Like I could talk to like anybody. So people get confused about how old I am by like just talking to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then when I say when I tell them I was like a baby or 2 years old when Star Wars came out or whatever it was, they're like, what? Like they think I'm like they assume I'm their age, So.
Well, so much of that older stuff was airing more often. I mean, I didn't search a lot of this out. It's what I grew up watching, and I didn't have cable as a kid until later in life. And so, and even when I did, it was just basic cable. But I grew up watching shows from the 60s and 70s because that's what was on.
Right. I think that's what makes us who we are and makes us. And like, I don't want to sound like that broken record or that grumpy old boomer, as the kids say, even though we're Generation X. I don't want to sound like that. But I feel bad for some of these younger people with everything at their fingertips and a lot of their information being AI, which I think is a lot of bullshit. Um, they're like, I think I got such an education being what I call like an incidental film and TV fan. My knowledge of film and pop culture is like what was available, you know?
Mhm.
And I would watch like there was a Universal Monsters craze in like the late 70s, early 80s, where they were replaying those movies and selling the little toys in a store. And I thought those movies were when my dad was a kid. No, those movies were before my dad was born.
Yeah.
The original Dracula was like 30s,
Sure.
40s. So like it was the best time to grow up,
Yeah.
and even when we did get cable, it was like the same. First of all, they still didn't have programming yet, so they were still playing old. I mean, and when I discovered Bronson, forget it. The television, like I would go to the video store and look for his movies, but the television, the TV guide,
Oh yeah.
I'd look at everything for his name, and then I got a book at the library, and now I knew every TV show he was on, and I'd look for a rerun of it. Like, and listen, what a cool time to be obsessed over something.
Mhm.
Now, yeah, you can find everything at your fingertips, but sometimes you'll become obsessed with something and you can't find it. You can't find that thing. And you're like, and now we're just like, oh my God, like this is insane. How can I not find this? Because we're so
Mhm.
spoiled. Do you know what I mean? I know I sound like a broken record because this comes up on a lot of our episodes,
Right.
but this is what's important to me. And this is why I love talking about this shit. It's why I skip past action sequences sometimes because I'm so excited to just talk about horse shit like JD. And we do get back to JD, and he has a great line, by the way. This town, I'm going to try to do JD because I love his voice. This town's so uptight, you need a tractor to pull a needle out its ass. And then I often wonder, after they do a little talking with JD and they get some information from him, I often wonder if the character actor Walter Burke is taking a little if he was ad-libbing and taking a little shot at Bronson, because I hear he was tough on Sentinel when he says, "Stay happy." So
Good
I don't know
question.
If Buchin before you say it, Brad, if Buczynski brand is listening, we need stickers or T-shirts. We need something. We need
Stay
JD's face,
happy.
and it says "Stay happy."
Stay happy. Yeah, because I don't think Bronson talked to people a lot on that set.
Hmm.
that was kind of Bronson's like, we've heard about how he was like on Mr. Majestic a year later. So he was like that still a year earlier. He didn't talk to
Hmm.
many people on that set, but uh,
Right.
it. I do wonder. I always y'all tell me if I'm wrong or not. Does JD really give great information there at the end? Does he really give information that really does much? I'm just curious. To me, it doesn't seem like it does, but I expected more from JD there at the end.
Yeah, I wonder if they just wanted to bring that character back or something. I don't know.
I might have
Or
missed something.
they might have like just filmed it earlier. They don't always film it in sequence, and they're
Right.
like, we had a couple of scenes with JD. But no, I don't feel like he gave too much information. I don't
No,
feel
not
like they
much. There was a
needed to
couple
go.
characters that could have been cut out.
Yeah.
I don't even think they needed to go back to New York.
Yeah, yeah. Even Armitage at the beginning, like I think like we could have skipped a lot of that, or even skipped him altogether. I don't know, but
Yeah, it was convoluted with characters, but
yeah,
I enjoy that there was so many different characters. We have a
Right.
lot of characters on this episode. One of them, Robert Baum, has disappeared from us.
I'm still here.
I know you are. I'm
Well,
messing with you, dude.
I think Michael Winter loved putting interesting faces in his movies, and
yeah.
Yeah,
I think JD fit that. I think Armitage fit that. I think Lipper fit that. I've heard Michael Winter described as like a genius or an expert at casting because he
yeah.
could find these interesting faces, and he really does. He's really great at that.
I
Well,
will. Yeah, I will agree with that.
remember what Robert F. Lyons said about him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He pissed Robert F. Lyons off, but he Robert F. Lyons saw something in him, and like I think I mean not Robert F. Lyons, Michael Winter saw something in Robert F. Lyons, and I think he fired him and hired him back or something like that.
that's right. That's right.
But I think Michael Winner is a much more thoughtful artist than people give him credit for. I think, he's a pop artist like an Andy Warhol or something. His stuff is meant to be a little dirty, a little gritty, a little rough around the edges. But I think a lot more thought is put into that than a lot of people give him credit for. And I think because he was such a kind of a prick, but he was so happy being a prick. Like whenever you see these like interviews or read his like nasty restaurant reviews, they're like he's so full of joy being that way.
That's
But
right.
I don't know. I don't know. I think
He made the
people
great action films. I mean,
he
you can
did.
say what you want about Michael Winter, but when you look at the work he did in the early '70s,
Mhm.
especially, the man made great action movies. He knew how to create a great action suspense sequence.
Yeah,
And I think
he was good at gritty stuff. And I'll say, yeah, he's
mhm,
got this reputation for being a prick. And first of all, a lot of directors do really.
Yeah.
mhm.
But it's pretty telling that a lot of actors worked with him repeatedly, and that tells you something too.
Yeah.
He
So
got the best. He got a lot of the best actors to work with him.
mhm.
Mhm.
Let's so where were we at next? Well, next is the massacre pretty much, right?
Yeah, that's where your
That
precious elevators come into play.
finally the elevators.
One of
How
the
exciting.
best dummy death sequences that you'll ever see in film.
Two of them. Two of them. Yeah, there was two great falls in the underground garage. Remember those falls? They were they were great falls, by the way.
The guy, there was a one dummy that was supposed to be in New York, but actually fell in Los Angeles, from what I understand. It fell from way up high, and you saw it just splat on the ground.
It's a hell of a
Hmm.
fall.
I love that. I love
Cross
that.
country.
Those are some two good falls, man. So yeah, and there's a big shootout and everything in the underground garage, which we get a lot of underground garage and Bronson films. You notice
Mhm.
that?
That's right.
To the point that I almost get like a little bit of like if I don't get nostalgic for a Bronson film, I get a little stress, a little anxiety when I'm in an underground garage.
Telefon has a great underground garage sequence.
Yes, Telefon. I'm putting this is actually up there with Telefon as like one of my obsessions now. Where it's
Mhm.
like every time I go to like watch a Bronson movie lately, I I put this or Telefon on. I don't know why. I'm just like I get in these obsessive modes where like a certain movie, I want to watch it over and over so I could see different things. You know what I mean? Especially if I'm
Mhm.
going to talk about them on a show. But Telefon, we already did that episode, and
Right.
I sit there, I think about that snake.
Mhm.
I think about how he strangled pretty much everybody. Like that's a neat take on a Bronson film. You know what
Novel
I mean?
Pleasance gets the old strangle technique.
Hmm. So stay happy.
Pull some aluminum foil out of my sleeve here.
That's right. That's right.
Uh-huh.
That's right. Well,
What
it's
was some
got
of
a
it?
great ending sequence there. In New York,
Hmm.
ends up in the underground garage. Once again, you have a good dummy fall. You have the one guy has that amazing death sequence where he's like shooting his gun and he's falling off to the side. And he's like, boy, he's giving it all he's got. I mean, it's one of
Yeah.
the great I don't know who the actor is. I don't know if he's a stuntman or whatever, but he gives it every bit he's got as he's dying. Because he gets shot by Bronson 2 or 3 times, and then he shoots about 4 more times and contorts about 4 different directions. So I don't know if y'all noticed that or not, but
Sure.
We should try to find him, see if he's alive.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not going to end up on the cutting room floor. I'm making
I'm
this
going
Those
work.
for this.
those are people that I want to talk to, you know what I mean? Like not to change the subject, but those are like the kind of people I want to meet. Burt Kearns, if you remember Murphy's Law, the
Yeah.
guy that gets shot in the airport,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
is supposed to be the mobster's brother. Uh Burt Kearns knows that guy.
Yeah.
They worked together in tabloid television.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Anthony
and
Alberto Vincenzo.
yes, Vincenzo. I'm gonna find that guy. We're gonna interview him about getting shot and killed.
Well, he's like I remember he was like the guy that if a star wanted help like dealing with like animal rights act issues and stuff, they called that guy.
He's an animal rights
Yeah,
guy, yeah,
that's right.
and he's a at one time pretty militant animal rights guy.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
think he did some crazy shit. There's something in one of Bert's books. I got to pull the story out. It's great. He's like he was it was for he was doing a scene for he was doing filming something for hard copy. No, not hard copy. Whatever one
Current
Bert worked
affair.
Current
for.
affair.
Current affair.
Wow,
And
current
he
affair.
started
Yeah,
smashing
well,
he started smashing windows and stuff or something. I gotta look it up. I hope I'm not speaking out of school. I'll have to look it up again. If I am, I am. I don't know. What are you gonna do?
So
But
what about the ending? We talked about in our mechanic episode of how Bronson and Winter came up with this incredible ending to the
mhm.
mechanic. It's
Oh
probably
yeah.
probably the greatest ending of any Charles. I've always said it's the greatest ending of any Charles Bronson film.
Yeah.
We've gone through the underground garage. We've had these amazing stunt actor deaths, and Stuart Margolin has turned himself in. What do y'all think about the ending of the Stone Killer, especially in comparison to the mechanic?
I kind of liked it. I remember liking it as a kid, which is weird because as a kid, you want to see Bronson blow the final bad guy away. But I don't feel like I got that punk scumbag vibe from Martin Balsam's character. So seeing him arrest him or blow him away wouldn't have been this great treat for me, I don't think. I think that was the first time as a kid, as a human being, I saw a movie end kind of like that, where it's kind of leaving it up to your imagination, but it was also kind of badass. Like it was a little bit of a short monologue kind of for Bronson, and he had that look on his face, that smile on his face, and he said, "You got 5 minutes, Christians." Which, by the way, coming back to my biblical,
Oh, there
that
you
this
go.
is part this was I have it written down. Biblical name. I believe the movie has a biblical name, biblical ending. And I will go to and I will fight hard. I will find my proof or I will prove myself wrong.
Was this because it wasn't like as definitive an ending as you'd get sometimes, and in the
Uh,
70s, we're definitely not known for happy endings in their movies. Um,
Hmm.
that wasn't a thing. But am I correct? I feel like because we researched this a while ago, because as you guys know, we're supposed to record this
Yeah,
podcast a while ago. But was this meant to
right.
maybe be a franchise for Bronson? I feel like I read that
Yes.
somewhere.
yes,
So I'm
it
wondering if
was.
that's why it was a little bit open-ended at the end.
And I
Maybe so.
yeah, and I have this, it's not a theory, but my thought is I think this could have been a franchise for Bronson. I think this movie would have been the part two.
Mm.
I think a more less thoughtful, more gritty Lutori, a more straightforward action story, easier to follow, and then this be the part two. This felt like a part two to me. And it's something I wrote about on our Facebook page. And it it's one of those thoughts that I have that's hard to articulate to people. Like, but to me, you know how like a movie will be really good, like Dirty Harry, but then the sequel, the story is a lot more confusing, a lot more going
Sure.
on because now you know the character, and now you're like you already now you know the character. I feel like for this movie, the shooting the kid in the beginning up to where his sister talked to him and told him he looked like the mines, swelt, everything dying. I feel like that was like a mini movie giving you a crash course on who this character was before this long kind of convoluted story where we really just got a crash course on this character. I feel like we could have had an hour and a half, 2 hour um introduction to him, and this could have been the sequel. Of course, like, you know, hindsight is 2020.
Yeah, maybe the first one being more character driven, the second one being more plot driven.
More character. Yeah, exactly. More and more like, you know, building this character that people can get behind and root for. Instead of giving this, we get the character thrown into this complex situation where is he Dirty Harry that he just blows guys away without thinking about it? Or is he having all this introspection about what's going on. I think it's a thoughtful story, and I think it's a lot to think about. But for me, I feel like we could have had, if the idea was that get him his own Dirty Harry type series, right? So give us a Dirty Harry type movie, then give us Stone Killer. But that's my thought. But I mean, obviously, you know, it's
Well, this movie,
50 years later.
This movie was successful internationally, but it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't successful domestically. It made about $1.4 million in America. You know, when Bronson's getting $1 million, the movie grossed about 1.4 million in America. Columbia just didn't feel like they could greenlight a series here. It ended up making $10 million internationally. Now,
Sure.
you have to keep in mind, $10 million was successful internationally in 1973.
But if this was the second film, it may have done better if we were given this introduction.
Yeah, but
it's a stupid thing to talk about because it can't happen anyway.
Yeah, it wasn't the second film. And matter of fact, the movie was successful enough that the author wrote another book to follow up on this. It's just, like I said, Columbia couldn't justify going into production because it didn't do much domestic. Matter of fact, it was a big miss by Columbia because this movie didn't do that great. So they didn't pick up Bronson's next movie with Winter, which happened to be Death Wish. Paramount got that one.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that became the franchise.
When I asked on our Facebook page, hey, what's your favorite Michael Winter, Charles Bronson film? A lot of people said Stone Killer, but I guess that's more in retrospect, years later type of thing, you know. But that's a good question. That's a good question, though, Brad. If you had to say, gun to your head, because I don't know if you need to think about it. What's your favorite Michael Winter, Charles Bronson film?
Let me think real quick. I'd probably go with this point. It would be between The Mechanic and The Stone Killer, and I'd probably lean a little bit Stone Killer.
Oh, now, interesting.
This is new. This is new to me, and I'll admit this is new to me because I've gained an appreciation for this movie really in the last 6 months as we've been talking about doing this. You know, Fanacek, we've talked to, I think maybe even going back to when we talked to you either on your episode or on ours, but we talked about doing this. So I've kind of been leaning. I've got a more of appreciation for this movie now than I've ever had, because in the past I would have easily said something like a Death Wish 3 or
I wasn't even thinking about 2 or 3.
And so now I'm kind of leaning towards Stone Killer because I actually appreciate the character and the plot much more than I ever did before.
What's your answer, Fanacek?
Probably The Mechanic, but I go back and forth with The Mechanic and Death Wish.
Bobby the Brain Baum.
I'm also a big Death Wish 2 guy, which I feel like doesn't get a lot of love.
Yeah,
I think we're going to have to revisit that because I think it deserves. I think the more I watch Death Wish 2, the more I want to defend it myself.
Hold on a second. I want to hear, just if you don't mind, I mean, Baum or Fanacek one, either who's ever ready to talk. I want to hear more about at some point. Just a brief Fanacek on the Death Wish 2. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. Why you like that one?
Oh, I just think I like the plot. I mean, you know, we get some Jill Ireland, right? So, but I like the plot. I mean, he's kind of reinvented himself. He's now out in California. I think it's a bad rap because of the violent rape scene. But again, you know, I grew up on some violent films, so I don't even think it's particularly violent. So that speaks volumes about me, maybe more than anything else. It's just an interesting movie. I dig it. I feel like I like the rest of the franchise, the 3 and 4 and 5. I do, but it does get a little campier. Right. And so it's almost like you got the Michael Keaton Batman versus like an Adam West Batman, you know. I feel like the first 2 are just more kind of gritty, old school, you know, action flicks. And I guess maybe I get defensive because I feel like Death Wish 2 is often overlooked. Is it Jimmy Page? Is that right?
It's often trashed. What's that?
Sorry? Was it Jimmy Page that did that soundtrack?
Yes, Jimmy Page. He was Michael Winter's neighbor. Michael Winter's neighbor.
That's right.
And it's one of his most successful financial films of the
Mhm.
80s for
Yeah.
sure. And so it was a very important film from taking Bronson from the mid 70s stardom to
Mhm.
his 80s phase with Cannon. It was huge and
Yeah,
basically extending his career another decade.
sure.
So
Yeah, I
Death
think
Wish
we could.
2
I
was
think we
huge.
should just do another episode
Mhm.
on that because I would love to discuss because I think I have a different view on it, and I think culturally and historically for his career, it has a whole different,
Mm-hmm.
a whole different meaning. To not, talking about launching his canon career and all that, his '80s career. But Bobby Baum, what's your favorite?
I guess it would probably have to be a toss-up between Death Wish and The Mechanic. I mean, The
Mhm.
Mechanic is a more fleshed out film, uh, in my opinion, anyway. I mean, than Death Wish is. I mean, of course, Death Wish is sort of, in a sense, even though you could say, in a sense, it started with Mechanic, that the prototype of Charles Bronson as pretty much a lone wolf
Mhm.
avenger, whether it's him as a cop, him as a soldier, him as an ex-soldier, etc. I mean, it sort of is providing the basic model for the films to follow. That I mean, at least the ones that stood out.
Yeah. So my answer, I was in an interview. Um, I was interviewed by, I can't think of his name right now, and I hope if he listens to this, he's not offended. I just can't think of it right now. Um, I said mechanic. And I think it was a pretty much hands down answer, but it's hard. It's really hard. Most favorite to watch mechanic, but with the best might be Stone Killer. It
Mm-hmm.
might be Death Wish. And I know I said gun to head. You had to answer it. So gun to head. I'm just going to go with Death Wish, and yeah, I'm going to change it from Mechanic to Death Wish just because it's just it's so iconic. But we're going to get going because we're coming up on 2 hours, and I got shit to do, as I always say. But Fanacek can be heard on all the different everywhere where fine casts are pod, right? Or fine pods or cast, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Fanachecks, wherever you listen to podcasts, and mostly on Facebook for social media, Real Fanachek. And you can email
Real
me, fanachekpodcast@gmail.com.
Yep, and I'm looking for suggestions on things that we can do, and I'm looking for people that might want to get involved with the show, be a guest, do whatever. So Eric.Todd, Todd 1975 at gmail.com. It's Eric.Todd 1975 at gmail.com. I have two Substacks I write. One's called Our Daily Lead, and it is the Substack to this podcast, but I kind of veered off the Bronson and action stuff, but I did make another one called World's Greatest Vlad for my dad and other stuff. I just called it Vlad instead of Dad because I wanted to put Vlad the Impaler on the picture. And Brad writes excellent reviews on Unobtainium. Is it Unobtainium? I
It's
know it's
called
called Through the
Unobtainium. It's unobtainium.com. The website's called Through the Shattered Lens, and I've had a great time. It's been giving me a good outlet for being able to, I'm kind of new to this, like kids being grown and out of the house kind of thing, and so
hmm
I've been looking forward to a good outlet for my love of movies. And you've got,
Yeah.
of course, This Week in Charles Bronson, but not only that, I write for this website called Through the Shattered Lens. So if you like to
Yeah.
read movie reviews, especially for movies from the 80s and 90s, that seems to be what I like to write about the most. So
Yeah, he writes great reviews. My thing, Our Daily Lead is more like how pop culture affects me and stuff like that and people. And Bobby Baum, you still writing a film reviews there, bud?
Well, I've submitted a handful over the last few years to the website. What's it called? It's called letterboxed.com.
Letterbox,
My most
yeah.
recent ones, it's letterboxed without the second E. I mean, it's letterbox d.com. I recently
hmm
submitted reviews of Cobra and the can and another Canon release. Their rather softcore snoozer Matahari starring Sylvia Crystal.
Excellent, excellent. And you got Bobby, you got to get yourself one of them Substacks. You just go in there, you write the shit. I have like 3 readers, but it doesn't matter because I just like it's so like if It's so ADD. It's so Brad, you've read my shit. It's like all over the place.
I'm trying to get a
But
podcast up and going, but it's been a bit slow.
you can do it. But anyway, does anybody have anything else to add? I gotta go.
I just want to say thanks for having me back on. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, let's do
Thanks
this
for
again
coming.
too, because you guys are two of my
Let's do
favorite
it
guests.
sooner.
Yeah,
Thanks
yeah.
for coming,
Let's.
Bob.
Yeah. Holidays are
offense.
over. Holidays are over. Brad's probably going to be in tax season, but
Tax season hell is coming my way.
but you know, um, yes, we're going to be doing this sooner than later. And you've been listening to This Week in Charles Bronson. This Week in Charles Bronson, a highly uncalled for news and pop culture program that revolves around one weirdo and his community's obsession with the late great action star. And my guests have been Robert Baum and Fanacek, and my co-host Bradley Crane. And of course, on the boards is the great Danny Getz. Have a good night. All right, guys. Thank you. That was fun.